morning, everyone. I, Dr. Shipra, welcome you all once again in this international webinar series, Killing the Killer, Diabetes, a Kaleidoscope. So let's start with our morning session. The panelists for this session are Dr. Sheila Kumar Gujari ma'am and Dr. Kartikeya Patil sir. Dr. Sheila ma'am has completed her BDS from KMC, Manipal, and MDS in Periodontics from JSS Dental College and Hospital. Ma'am headed the Department of Periodontology for more than 10 years and have more than 74 publications on her name. Currently, she is working as professor in Department of Periodontology in the JSS Dental College and Hospital. She has attended laser course from University of Texas Trust. Her areas of interest are periodontal medicine and regenerative therapy. We are glad to have you with us, ma'am. Our second panelist is Dr. Kartikeya sir. He has completed his MDS in 1996. He has more than 25 years of teaching experience and has more than 149 national and international publications on his credit. Currently, he is working as head of the Department of Oral Medicine and Radiology in the JSS Dental College and Hospital. His area of interest are advanced imaging in TMJ and oral potentially malignant disorders. He is a contributing author to the textbooks like Fundamentals of Oral Medicine and Radiology, Fundamentals of Dental Radiology, Textbook of Oral Radiology, etc. We are honored to have you among us, sir. Coming to the speaker of this session, today's speaker is Dr. Amita Ramesh ma'am. She completed her BDS and MDS from ABSM Institute of Dental Science, Bangalore. She has attended many conferences and has a number of publications on her credit. Currently, she is working as a professor of periodontology in ABSM Institute of Dental Science. She is reviewer of many renowned journals. We are glad to have you with us, ma'am. Over to you, Amita ma'am.
Good morning, one and all.
Good morning, ma'am.
First of all, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me the opportunity to present the lecture today, that is diabetes and oral diseases. As you all know about the diabetes is a disorder of carbohydrate metabolism. There are two types of diabetes, that is type 1 and type 2 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes is insulin-dependent diabetes, and the patient is not usually obese and has got severe symptoms of diabetes like polyphagia, polyuria, polydipsia, ketoacidosis, and usually it has got a genetic association and requires insulin therapy. Coming to type 2 diabetes mellitus, it's also called as non-insulin dependent diabetes mellitus or adult onset diabetes mellitus. And the symptoms are less severe compared to type 1 diabetes mellitus. That is lesser symptoms of lesser severity of polyuria, polyphagia, polydipsia, and mild ketoacidosis. Okay, and requires time for diagnosis, cannot be diagnosed immediately. And it requires oral hypoglycemics. It does not require insulin therapy. With this brief intro of diabetes, I'll proceed on to the diabetes and oral diseases. Diabetes is a common disorder with concomitant oral manifestations that impact the care, that is the dental care. This warrants a comprehensive plan that involves the collaboration between the physician and the oral healthcare providers, which will lead to better glycemic control among the patient population and also lower the personal and societal burden. So I've already told about the type 1 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes, it constitutes to around 5 to 10% of those with diabetes and results from the autoimmune destruction of the beta cells of the pancreas. And autoantibodies are present usually around 85 to 90% of the individuals and has genetic association. So type 2 diabetes constitutes around 90 to 95%. I've already discussed. Here there is no autoimmune destruction of the beta cells. There's insulin resistance and there is no genetic association. The patients who are not traditionally not obese, according to the traditionally weight criteria, will have increased percentage of body fat distributed predominantly in the abdominal region. The 5 classic complications of diabetes could be retinopathy, neuropathy, nephropathy, microvascular complications, delayed healing, and periodontal disease has been the 6th complication of diabetes mellitus. Coming to the oral diseases and diabetes, The oral diseases may include gingivitis, periodontitis, salivary gland dysfunction, xerostomia, taste impairment, dental caries, mucosal conditions like candidias, lichen planus, you have burning mouth syndrome, and other neurosensory disorders. Coming to the epidemiologic data, according to the WHO Global Report on Diabetes, number of people with diabetes rose from 108 million in 1980 to 422 million in 2014. Between 2000 and 2016, there was an increase in premature mortality from diabetes. Prevalence has been rising more rapidly in low and middle income countries than in higher income countries. In 2019 alone, an estimation of 1.5 million deaths were directly caused by diabetes. According to the International Diabetes Federation 2019, approximately 463 million people were living with diabetes, and which was expected to be 700 million by 2045. Coming to potential oral diseases, so you have the dental caries, tongue abnormalities, you have halitosis, you have dry socket, gingivitis and periodontitis, bacterial and fungal infections, you have burning mouth syndrome, you have taste impairment, you have. Coming to dental caries, the relationship between the dental caries and diabetes mellitus is complex. Here what happens is, as we all know, in diabetes, there's salivary dysfunction, there's reduction in salivary flow. And you have neuropathy also, which adds on to the decreased salivary flow. And so once the salivary flow is decreased, there is more scope for dental caries. One of the study revealed type 2 diabetes as a significant risk factor for root caries, but not for coronal caries. Coming to gingivitis, so you have enlarged gingiva, you have hyperplasia of the gingiva, you have pedunculated gingival polyps, you have polypoid gingival proliferations, and increased gingival bleeding. This could change the environment of the microflora, inducing qualitative changes in the bacteria, contributing to the increased periodontal tissue destruction. Coming to periodontitis, inflammation-induced insulin resistance is due to the drift in the subgingival microflora, which increases the susceptibility of the patients with diabetes to infection caused by PMN deficiency, that is defective chemotaxis, defective phagocytosis, there's altered collagen metabolism, there's decreased collagen synthesis, there is a reduction in alveolar bone height and impairment of tissue integrity, causing destructive changes in the periodontium. Also, the AGE is that the accumulated glycated end products causes decrease in the regenerative capacity of the periodontium, thereby worsening the existing destruction. A cross-sectional interventional study was done, was seen, and the periodontal inflamed surface index was recorded, and it was seen that it's increased in diabetic subjects by more of HbA1c, more than 7%. Clinical manifestations could include multiple periodontal abscess, there's attachment loss, the periodontal pocket formation, and there's loss of teeth in severely uncontrolled diabetes mellitus. Evidence indicates that diabetes mellitus alters the response of the periodontal tissues to local factors, hastening bone loss, and also delayed post-surgical healing of the periodontal tissues. Patients who are having diabetes over more than 10 years have greater loss of attachment, that is of periodontal structures, than those with a history of less than 10 years. This destruction can be related to the diminished tissue integrity that occurs over the time. Patients with type 1 diabetes mellitus and periodontitis have to be reported with a microflora having capnocytophaga, anaerobic vibrio, and actinomyces. In type 2, it is seen that black pigmented bacterioids like P. gingivalis, P. intermedia, Campylobacter vectors are seen. Coming to salivary gland dysfunctions. So xerostomia or dry mouth in diabetes is accompanied by polyuria, that is loss of liquid, which causes the secondary dry mouth, sticking of the mirror onto the mucosal surface, and the cracked appearance of the tongue, one of the oral manifestations of the xerostomia, clinical manifestations. Obesity in type 2 diabetes causes significant changes in submandibular gland morphology, is reduction of glandular mass. So here you can appreciate the sticking of the mouth mirror to the mucosal surface. You can appreciate the cracked tongue. Next, coming to the altered taste sensation, one of the factors which alter the physiologic taste threshold is diabetes mellitus. So here you have decreased turnover of the taste receptors. Distal symmetric sensorimeter motor neuropathy is common form in case of diabetic. Coming to burning mouth syndrome can be primary, which is due to idiopathic reasons, and secondary due to diabetes mellitus itself. Burning mouth syndrome in diabetic patients can be attributed to the glycemic control, that is metabolic alterations. So good metabolic control can reduce all these symptoms. All the various theories have been explained in pathophysiology of burning mouth syndrome. There's a combination of processes which causes this oral burning sensation, including the damage in chorda tympani and small fiber neuropathy. Coming to increased incidence of infection, there is a possible association between diabetes and prevalence of infections like chronic bronchitis, bacteremia, primary tuberculosis, mucormycosis, aspergillosis. Doubtful association exists between the diabetes and the prevalence of the chronic sinusitis. Pathophysiology can be attributed to the several defects in the host immune defects in the diabetic subjects. Coming to delayed wound healing, research has provided numerous ways in which AGEs, that is accumulated glycated end products concentration, results in impaired wound healing. Okay, there might be increase of oxidative stress, structural and functional changes of the proteins which are important in the wound healing, and there might be exaggerated apoptosis of the cells which are required for the wound repair process. One of the studies showed that there is, in the histological section, it showed that there is delayed epithelial tissue migration for wound closure after the extraction compared to the extraction of a teeth compared to the control. Coming to the neurosensory disorders, more than 20 syndromes and increased number of degenerative diseases are known to be associated with diabetes mellitus. Some of them are Alzheimer's disease, ataxia telangiectasia, Down syndrome, Huntington's disease, several disorders of mitochondria, myotonic dystrophy, mitochondrial disorders, and vitamin B1 deficiency are associated with the neurosensory disorders. Coming to benign mucosal disturbances, here we're talking about irritational fibromas. So it was initially suspected that these lesions were consequences of increased tooth loss in large number of patients with type 1 diabetes who have dentures. In one of the study, 3 out of 10 patients with type 1 diabetes had irritational fibromas. Traumatic ulcers, the increased number of traumatic ulcers in the subjects with type 1 diabetes appear to be related to any of the parameters in one of the study. This may be attributed to other factors like slower healing in case of diabetes patients. In one of the study, they found that 14 subjects had more, that is in case of type 1 diabetes, had more traumatic ulcers compared to that of the controls, which was 3. Angular cheilitis. So angular cheilitis, as you all know, is a chronic inflammatory lesion that affects the labial commissures. So it appears clinically as erythematous fissured lesions at the angles of the mouth. So one of the study, it showed that the prevalence was around 15% in case of type 2 diabetic subjects and only 9% in controls. Coming to denture stomatitis is oral mucosal lesion where it is seen in the fitting surface of the dentures. Classically, the lesion, so you all can see here, classically the lesion presents as the erythema and edema restricting to the denture supporting areas. The lesions are often asymptomatic. The patients may develop slight soreness or burning sensation. Though most lesions are associated with Candida infections, the other etiologic factors could be poor oral denture like oral hygiene also, and nocturnal denture wearing and ill-fitting dentures. A case control study was done and it was shown that the type 2 diabetes had the highest, or showing the highest prevalence of the denture stomatitis, followed by the type 1 diabetes and then followed by the controls. So which shows that the oral hygiene is very important for the improvement of the oral health care in a diabetic patient. Coming to geographic tongue or benign migratory glossitis, it's a well-recognized inflammatory disorder affecting the dorsum of the tongue. So here what happens is non-ulcerated patches, okay, which is denuded of keratin, which appears more erythematous compared to the surrounding areas. One of the studies showed that there is fourfold increase in the prevalence of this geographic tongue in case of type 1 diabetes, which may be associated with the HLA-B15 gene. Coming to median rhomboid glossitis, the lesion is characterized by symmetrical erythematous rhomboid lesions, the posterior dorsal surface of the tongue, just anterior to the circumvallate papilla. Here the fungiform and the filiform papilla are absent. And the study was done in 463 individuals. Here it showed that the diabetic patients had around 6.43 prevalence of median rhomboid glossitis compared to the controls, which was around 1.53%. Fissured tongue. The fissured tongue include double fissure that you can see here, fissure running along the dorsum of the tongue. The pathogenesis is considered to be the genetically determinant or age-related or the changes in the oral environment. One of the studies showed that there is increase of this fissured tongue prevalence in case of subjects with type 1 diabetes, that is 5.54% compared to that of curves 0.4%. Coming to oral lichen planus, the relationship between oral lichen planus and diabetes is way back found in 1966 by Greenspan et al. And was studied extensively then. This oral lichen planus, there are different forms of oral lichen planus. So erosive variety is said to be getting transformed more frequently into malignant lesion. So pathogenesis could be immune dysregulation as well as the few anti-diabetic medications which evoke an allergic reaction, and an oral lichenoid lesion could be seen. One of the studies showed a significant occurrences of oral lichen planus in diabetes mellitus when compared to controls. Coming to fungal infections. So fungal infections, you have oral candidiasis. So Candida species and mortality has ranged from 40 to 80% in immunocompromised hosts. The main pathophysiologic and nutritionally relevant sugars in diabetic patients, you have glucose and fructose. But other simple carbon sources also play a role in the growth of Candida species in diabetes mellitus patients. So one of the study, they evaluated the growth of Candida albicans in the presence of different concentration of glucose and fructose to obtain a better understanding of the nutritional acquisition strategy and its possible relation to the hypoglycemic state of diabetic patients. The authors determined that the glucose concentration is directly related to the growth of Candida albicans, but they have shown that the fructose may inhibit the development of the Candida organism. So interestingly, fructose showed Candida albicans inhibition capacities. Okay, so which shows that the fructose containing food may prevent the development of candidiasis. So as the COVID-19 pandemic is going on, so we are hearing a lot of things like mucormycosis, aspergillosis. So I would like to put a note on those two. That is, you have mucormycosis, which is a life-threatening invasive fungal infections that occurs in a diabetic patient. The pathophysiology is mainly, as we all know, there's altered innate immunity in diabetic patient, okay, which is reflected by the well-characterized PMN dysfunction, as impaired phagocytosis, impaired immunity. The hyphae of these organisms, that is, you have the mucor species here, mucormycosis. The hyphae of these organisms assume tissue invasive form, and they have predilection for blood vessels, resulting in tissue necrosis. Symptoms of mucormycosis, you have one-sided swelling, headache, nasal or sinus congestion, black lesion on the nasal bridge or the upper side of the mouth that quickly becomes severe, you have fever. And this is a case report wherein a patient with COVID, This 41-year-old patient diagnosed with type 1 diabetes, and it's having mucormycosis. The patient was having cavernous sinus involvement, and the patient recovered after 3 surgical debridements. Coming to aspergillosis, the term aspergillosis covers different clinical pictures caused by fungi belonging to the Aspergillus genus. Aspergillus is a ubiquitous fungus capable of producing diverse clinical entities with varying severity. Although Aspergillus candida inhalation is very common, the disease is very rare in healthy subjects. Clinical forms include colonization, invasive, infectious, and allergic forms. The worst form is the invasive, especially in immunocompromised subjects with pulmonary or extrapulmonary localization. Oral aspergillosis is rare and mainly affects the host, particular risk for impaired immune system. One of the cases, they found the jawbone infection of Aspergillus species after the extraction in case of a diabetic patient. Critically ill COVID-19 patients are prone to fungal infections, but the pathogenesis is not yet fully understood. Marginal gingiva and gingival sulcus have been cited to be the portal entry of the spores. Painful gingival ulceration and mucosal soft tissue swellings, boilish blue, are reported. This is a case report of 69-year-old COVID patient with a COPD, grade 2 obstructive sleep apnea with type 2 diabetes mellitus. So here, after the antifungal treatment, addition of voriconazole, the patient deceased 3 days after the initiation of the treatment due to multi-organ failure. So in case of diabetes, some of the oral manifestations could be directly related to the hyperglycemic state, and some of them could be due to the chronicity of the diabetes, that is the years, how many years the diabetic suffering from a diabetes. So, and chronicity of the disease as well as the infection. So with this, I like to conclude. Diabetes mellitus leads to a multiple complications which increases when glycemic control in the patient is inadequate. Even though some studies suggest that the microvascular pathways are involved in the pathogenesis of the oral complication, it's not so evident in all the oral complications. To combat some of these complications, prevent morbidity, mortality, and reduce the mortality, it is a matter of existential importance for the doctors and the dentists to be thorough with the various complications and also make an early diagnosis. This makes management and prevention important. Therefore, an interdisciplinary approach of diabetes mellitus care professionals together with the dental field professionals is required to manage the potential oral complications. These are my references. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, good morning.
Ma'am, you provided a detailed insight on the oral aspects of diabetes, and it has been rightly said that the oral cavity is the mirror of the systemic health, not only in diabetes, but in most of the systemic diseases. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am. Over to panelists.
Yeah.
Good morning. Is Dr. Karthikeya Patel, sir, available?
Good morning. Good morning, Sheila. Good morning.
Yes, sir. You please give your comments, and I will carry on.
It has been a very wonderful coverage of the topic. She has dealt with almost all the topics, but however, I would like to add that most commonly diabetes are type 1 and type 2, what we come across. But there are some more types of diabetes are also existing. They're secondary to the malignant diseases, tumors, and other causes of the pancreas. Once in a while, you may come across with those things, but they are basically dependent on insulin dependent diabetes mellitus. I would like to know any one of you have questions regarding this oral manifestation.
I think there's a question by Dr. Aruna Nautiyal. Since diabetes has such a strong relationship with periodontitis, shouldn't glycosylated hemoglobin be a part of our routine pre-surgical hemogram? Your kind opinion on this?
Yeah, of course, because HbA1c normally gives what patient has underbeen for the last 3 months in the diabetic status. So, what will be the long-term effects of diabetes over the patient's immunity? That will give a very good picture of the periodontal status, how patient may react to the treatment protocol. It should be as soon when you get a patient of diabetes with a periodontal disease, it is mandatory to advise the estimation of blood sugar level, FBS, PPBS, as well as HbA1c, glycosylated hemoglobin, to know the earlier status of the disease. It should be done.
So, what I have a question is, sir, just like Dr. Aruna Nautiyal was saying, we can have that as a routine, just like before we do our SRP also. I feel that is also required because during our inflammatory process, especially since that periodontitis is considered the sixth complication. To handle that, we'll have to require to check it. So it's not just surgical, but also non-surgical therapy that we, like sir was saying, that we will require to check on the glycosylated hemoglobin levels.
Glycated hemoglobin level would be better to take in a patient who is a known diabetic and who already is experiencing, because it gives the value for 3 months, and it is mainly to monitor the diabetes level in a patient who is a known diabetic. That would be very good to use. Other parameters like sir told, FPS and postprandial, all these are to be used for a patient who is not yet diagnosed. So those other tests, and especially the oral glucose tolerance test, all these are the tests that are preferred for a person who's not yet been diagnosed as a diabetic. And I would suggest that HbA1c also is a part of the diagnostic tests, but to be used mainly for people who have already been who has already been diagnosed as a diabetic. I would like Dr. Amita to also give her opinion on this.
Okay.
Dr.
Sheila, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Good morning. Accumulated glycated end products is one of the causes for all the changes which occurs in a diabetic patient. Okay, it is that hyperinflammatory response of the neutrophils you can see in case of a diabetic patient. And one more thing, what you told is about the glycated hemoglobin, which is an important marker to find out the 3 months duration of the control of the diabetes. But yet another marker is right now, my PG is doing a thesis regarding the fructosamine, okay, fructosamine levels, which gives the control of within 2 to 3 weeks. You get a 3 weeks control with that. So I think that would be a better marker. So you can control diabetes faster than moving on to 2-3 months where it would have been further progress to a later stage of diabetes. So we can early diagnose this diabetes, I think, with testing this fructosamine levels. Okay, that is my opinion regarding the control of the diabetes. And anyway, glycated hemoglobin is a gold standard. I do agree. But this we are just trying out with fructosamine levels because a lot of studies have come related to this fructosamine. Yeah, we are testing in salivary fructosamine levels using ELISA kit.
Ma'am, but
Madam,
ELISA
We're just
kit
doing the
takes,
study.
ma'am, does ELISA, but
Madam,
ELISA kit takes a longer time, isn't it?
No, but we are testing it using the ELISA kit, madam. We are not, we are testing the fructosamine levels. We're just doing a study.
Yes, ma'am.
We're just
But I think it
started
will,
doing a study.
yes, ma'am. But what I think is there will be avenues if we put up that as a chairside diagnostic, like we had our Diamond Genie or whatever. Chairside, we had EvalueSite or whatever we had to identify whatever microorganism or the biochemical parameters. If we have something chairside, ma'am, that will help us check the blood sugar levels, just like we do that prick test. I think that will work for us.
We have a lot of
beneficial.
chairside. Yeah. That could be.
Maybe we can actually work on,
Data
not
is-
work on fructose
Yes,
levels.
we have AccuCheck. We have.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Madam, one more question is there by
Chairside.
here.
Yeah.
We have learned a lot about quorum sensing in periodontal microbiology. Does diabetes somehow favor the microbial growth and development? Please share your views on this.
Definitely. Definitely, the diabetes has got a role in it definitely changes the microbiome flora. There's a change of subgingival microbiome flora along with diabetes. So naturally, there's going to be a lot of changes in the blood also, blood cells. There might be defect in phagocytosis, defect in chemotaxis, altered collagen metabolism, increased bone loss. So all these things you can appreciate in case of a diabetic patient because there is change of the quality of the subgingival microflora in case of a diabetic patient. So due to all this quorum sensing and also the micro, whatever you can see all these changes and you can appreciate a lot of changes in case of a diabetic patient. So which might be resulting in the periodontal tissue destruction as the years goes by if the patient is severely diabetic, it's got uncontrolled diabetes.
Yeah, I hope your question is answered. Are there any more questions, Sumuk, Dr. Sumuk? Can you see any more questions? Because these are
I have one question. Do we have any chairside glucose testing? I mean, blood sugar testing that we can do, just like a prick test that I was talking of.
There is AccuCheck, no?
Ma'am, anything else other than that?
AccuCheck.
Things are as cheap as our prick test.
I think you can go for I think these lab tests are quite, go for a Benedict's reagent, all those things are there, which is very economical, but exactly, I'm not sure of the.
Right now, the easiest to do is to measure from the GCF using the paper strip, your glucometer. That is, I think, right now the easiest to do and cheapest. I mean, it is not cheap because you have to bear the expenses of the strips and things like that.
Yeah, so if we work at a system where we can introduce that into our diagnostic chairside diagnostics, or be given to a patient where they can check the salivary blood sugar levels, and if it is as good as comparable as blood sugar levels, then they can, instead of prick test, they can actually monitor their blood sugar levels through the salivary samples. That is what I feel about it, Sheila ma'am. So Karthik sir,
they have come up with so many tests, even the matrix metalloprotein tests and things like that, but they're not specific, like saying that is. There are tests that are coming up which we still need to go through it. So it is not that we have come up with a complete chairside test. There are tests going on, diagnostic tests are going on how to come across this. You have also the occult blood test that is also being done. Yes, now I, as I am not seeing any more questions, I would like, I know Madam is quite busy and the next person would be waiting for the, to carry on with the presentation. I would like to thank Madam a lot for coming, especially when she is so busy. She has managed to give us some, spare her time, especially on a Sunday. And I would like to say that she has given a nice uh, glimpse through all the oral changes that can take place due to diabetes, which I think all of you have seen the various changes that can take place. And it's very important that you know, keep in mind that these are the changes that take place in a diabetic. And when a patient comes to you, and most of the time the patients do not know that they are diabetic, and you are the ones who are able to see the changes, observe the changes. Many of the times they are asymptomatic, and patient is not aware of all this. So when you see those things, you should definitely keep in mind that nowadays, as Madam has mentioned, the rates of diabetes is very high, and India being the second highest in the world to have diabetes. So I think we all should be aware of all these all manifestations, and especially in COVID, post-COVID patients, the complications like the fungal growths, or the fungal uh, uh, manifestations which were there before is now becoming even more evident uh, now after the COVID period, and how the diabetics are more affected by COVID. So, with all these things in mind, I think Madam has given us a good glimpse to the oral cavity, and the salivary glands also can also have its manifestations. So it's good, keep in mind all these things. And when you diagnose a case, please make sure that in your record you always find out whether the patient is a diabetic, and whether they have any familial history of diabetes, because most of the time they do not know. And also you need to be in hand with the physician, uh, always keep hand with physician, that that way we can bring and fight this diabetes. So that's what I have to say. So thank you, Madam, and hope to see you again.
Thanks.
And I know you have done a lot of research, a lot of publications on micronutrients in diabetes. Yeah, I hope we'll have an opportunity later on also to have an interaction with you. And coming to Dr. Karthikeya Patil,
Thank
sir,
you, madam.
can you, sir?
Yeah, this is regarding the diagnostics on the chair side. Basically, because of a wide variety of oral medicine, as Dr. Anita said, uh, you can suspect in patients who are not known to have diabetes. You can suspect, but ultimately, what will happen by conducting your chairside investigation and all, you cannot confirm. You ultimately you have to go for a confirmatory test,
Yeah.
and you should
Yes.
take opinion from endocrinologist. So instead of conducting chairside investigation to know the blood sugar level, those things can be better used in case of treatment protocol when you are treating the patient for periodontal therapy, or suppose you have done some periodontal therapy and you are following it up. So you want to check whether the treatment what you have done is productive, or whether it is not responding very well because of diabetic status of the patient, which we ultimately will come to know by glycosylated hemoglobin. So that's why the dentist will come to know whether the patient is not responding well to your treatment, or you may have to change the treatment protocol. So ideally, chairside, I don't feel you should investigate, because they are not directly cause any effect on your treatment plan. They won't change anything. That's what I feel. What do you say, Dr. Sheila?
Yeah, what I feel what Sir is telling is correct for progress, to check the progress of your treatment. Basically, the chairside kit would help. But yes, that's what, let us see what is there in future for us. So right now, it is always best to go for the lab test and then finally uh, get the opinion from the endocrinologist, because the lab tests are always the best and standardized. And yes, madam, I think Dr. Savita has got a question for you regarding saliva mix, opinion about saliva mix.
Ma'am, Dr.
About
Savita is asking about your opinion about saliva mix.
Yeah. So what is your opinion regarding this? Actually, yeah, we are going a bit away from the topic. I think yours was more on the oral manifestation. But if you can comment on this, please do comment. Because actually we
I
are
think it's mainly
going
related to
away
the
from the
proteome.
topic.
Yeah, it's not the topic related actually, but I think it's related to some proteomics which is there in the saliva. It should be help in the diagnosis again, so which could help in the diagnosis of the particular diabetes which is present in the patient.
So, madam, thanks. Thank you. And I think we can conclude this session.
Dr.
Thank
Sheila,
you.
as can I few words?
Yeah,
Dr.
yes.
Sheila?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is regarding the topic related. There are wide variety of the oral manifestations seen in diabetic patients, because whatever diseases we tend to see normally in a patient on non-diabetic do occur in diabetic patients with much higher frequencies because of their metabolite status. So it is always mandatory whenever you see any one of the old manifestations as widely discussed, you try to focus on the diabetic status of patient based on the age related, based on the symptoms, based on the genetic. So kindly do advise, investigate the patient for blood sugar level estimation. So that's how these oral diseases will help us in diagnosing in non-diabetic or unknown diabetic patients. What do you say, Dr. Sheila?
Yeah, yes, sir, definitely. That's what I was also commenting, that we should be aware of all the changes, and especially in a diabetic, all the more we should be more careful and be aware of what are the complications that can be there. And we should, like a person, the diabetics are more prone for kidney problems. So sometimes that kidney problem is not very evident, and it's only by casual investigations like microalbuminuria tests and creatine tests. That's how you come to know. So when a patient, a diabetic, is having a long duration of diabetes, it's always you should always be careful, because you should always keep in mind what are the complications that these diabetics are prone to. So yeah, you might, in addition to your regular blood tests and things, you might have to add other tests also, uh, to be more sure they're not going into any complications, which is, yes, the duty of the physician also to monitor. But from our part, we can do what investigations we can always advise and see that they are taking the necessary treatment from the endocrinologist. So yes, what you have told, yes, there are a lot of things because diabetics are very prone to all sorts of infections. So we should always, it's very important in our case history that we do keep in mind all these things.
So take home message is whenever you come across the wide variety of oral diseases, it being a periodontist or any dentist for that reason, suspect diabetes status of the patient and take ultimate reference from the physician or the endocrinologist to help the patient treatment protocol as well as the overall health of the patient. That's what the take home message is.
Yes, sir. So, Shipra, over
And
to you.
one more thing I would
Yeah, yes, madam, you have something to tell,
One-
please.
like to add one more thing I just saw one question related to HbA1c. Could it be used as a routine blood investigation protocol? I think it has to be done. Every patient has to undergo this HbA1c test levels before taking up any case for periodontal surgery. This is my opinion. I just saw one question regarding the HbA1c levels, whether it has to be followed in the regular blood investigation. According to me, it has to be done before any kind of surgery for the safeguard of the patient as well as the doctor.
Yeah, over to you, Shipra.
Thank you, Sheila ma'am. Thank you, Karthikeya sir. I request Dr. Amita ma'am to accept the certificate as a token of appreciation. I request Dr. Sheila ma'am and Karthikeya sir to accept the certificate as a token of appreciation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Amita Ramesh,
Thank you.
Dr. Karthikeya Patil, and Dr. Sheila Kumar. It
Yeah.
was a really wonderful lecture and a conclusion that we came to regarding the investigations of salivaomics that we can use salivary diagnostics and all the other array of oral diseases that we have. Thank you so much, all three of you, for actually accepting this webinar series to lecture and panel. Thank you, sir, and thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. We are honored.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Hope to see you all again. Thank you.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll watch a short video on CuraProx, and I request all the attendees to please stay back. We'll shortly start our second session.
Our journey began when Hans Breitschmidt found a winning formula in the combination of continuing education and innovative products. At a time when few saw the importance of interdental brushing and oral health, he was joined by his entrepreneurial-minded son, who set out to change the world. Ueli found kindred spirits, passionate educators who developed iTop into an international success story, as well as daring engineers and designers who created and always improved a colorful, iconic product. Celebrating its 40th anniversary in 2019 and beloved around the world. But made in Switzerland, where we continue to develop and improve our products to the world's expectation of Swiss premium design and superior quality. So our wonderful partners can bring our promise of better health to their people. From Bratislava to Sao Paulo, from Maribor and Prague to Tokyo, and from Seoul back to Zurich, a journey around the world that is only just beginning. With more innovative products coming, a strong international platform for professional education, and the digital resources and skills to work together and build direct relationships with our consumers. One Curaden, to bring to the world what Hans and Ueli envisioned from the very beginning: better health with a smile.